And away we go, episode 1302 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Tuesday, April 14th, 2026, and for just the ninth time over the last 43 NHL seasons, the Washington Capitals are not making the Stanley Cup Playoffs. The Caps have been officially eliminated from contention to make the 2026 Stanley Cup Playoffs. This via the Philadelphia Flyers' 3-2 shootout win over the Carolina Hurricanes on Tuesday night. The Flyers overcame being down 2-0 at the end of the first period. The Caps were eliminated from contention for the Eastern Conference's second of two wildcard spots via the Ottawa Senators' 3-0 win at the New York Islanders this past Saturday afternoon. And now the Caps have been eliminated from finishing in third place in the Metropolitan Division as the top three teams in each division make the Stanley Cup playoffs. So the Caps had made the Stanley Cup playoffs in 34 of the previous 42 seasons. So the Caps have one game left in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season at the Columbus Blue Jackets Tuesday night at 7. Will that prove to be the final game in the NHL career of the greatest player in Caps history, maybe the greatest athlete in Washington, D.C. sports history, Caps winger Alex Ovechkin, the Great Eight? I don't think that he's going to retire this coming offseason, but of course, we don't know. Hello and welcome to this Tuesday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. We are a day away from the Washington Commanders revealing, quote, new uniforms, end quote. The team on March 26th on X put out a video announcing that the team on April 15th will be announcing, quote, new uniforms, end quote. And the team on Monday at 12 p.m. on X put out a post saying that the reveal of the new uniforms will be on Wednesday morning at 10, and the post included a graphic with the following phrase, quote, behold the burgundy and gold, end quote. Behold the burgundy and gold. That would seem to be yet another sign that the new uniforms will at least be similar to the very popular Super Bowl era alternate uniform of this past season. But what exactly will the new uniforms look like? What will the logo on the helmet for the new uniforms be? We'll find out on Wednesday morning at 10. In-depth coverage on Thursday's episode of the podcast. As for this episode of the podcast, next segment, the second of two conversations over two shows with a good friend of this podcast, Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. We, with Mark, are going in-depth on the 2026 NFL Draft as it relates to Washington, which has the number 7 overall pick in the draft. And we, on this installment of the podcast, are focusing on the Big Four out of Ohio State. Linebacker/edge defender Arvell Reese, linebacker Sonny Styles, safety Caleb Downs, and receiver Carnell Tate. How many of those guys will be available to Washington at 7? Who should Washington most like out of those guys? How would each guy fit on the Commanders? Mark Bullock, next segment. And also on the show, I'll talk Washington Nationals and Baltimore Orioles. The Nats, they on Monday evening lost at the Pittsburgh Pirates 16-5 in a game in which the Nats allowed the Pirates to score 4 runs in the bottom of the second and 10 runs in the bottom of the sixth. The O's, they on Monday evening beat the Arizona Diamondbacks 9-7 at Oriole Park at Camden Yards in a game in which the O's overcame a 7-1 sixth-inning deficit. Before we get to feedback, the Washington Wizards, they on Monday morning and Monday afternoon held season-ending press conferences for head coach Brian Keefe and players off the end of the NBA's 2025-2026 regular season, in which our rebuilding and tanking Wizards went an NBA worst 17-65, but is the tank now over? There are multiple reasons to believe that this was the final season of the Wizards' 3-season tank, including the team this season having acquired Trae Young and Anthony Davis via trade, and the 2027 NBA draft not being viewed as a good draft, and the NBA being likely to implement anti-tanking rules that take effect next season. We, during Anthony Davis's season-ending press conference on Monday morning, had this back and forth between David Aldridge of The Athletic and Davis.
AD, are the questions you have about this organization questions that can be answered in one off season?
I think so. Yeah. Because I know I'm not delusional, right? I know it's not, like I said, if they were to sit here and be like, hey, we want to win a championship next year. Now, obviously, that's the goal for everybody, right? But yes, I like that, but also let's be realistic, about the situation. So, as much as I would love, I know it's a timeline, right? It might not be next season. It might be the season after. It might be season 3 where it's like, all right, real contenders. It might be playoffs. Then, hey, maybe they get to the conference finals. Now, hey, they're going to be a contender. I do hear, because I don't read social media and all that stuff unless it's about foul play. You can catch Monday and tonight at 9.
You are disciplined, sir.
Sorry. I'm excited to see the episode tonight, that people are talking about our team, already, and people are excited, and people around the league are like, hey, who knows what can happen, when you add, a guy like myself and Trey to these young guys who can play, which means that if people are talking about it, it's some people that fear, right? So now you're talking about a level of fearness. Is fearness a word?
Fearness?
Yeah, maybe. You guys can figure it out. Fear. Level of fear that is now that comes with the Washington Wizards, right? So, I think all those questions will be answered, within the summer, and then kind of just, like I said, figuring out what the plan and the trajectory is of the team. But, I've had great communication with Mike and Will through this entire, process, and I know we're going to have a great conversation going into the summer. And for me, I'd rather have those conversations sooner than later because I'm ready to get to work and try to change things around.
Do you think, at the least, while these questions get answered, do you at least say, okay, you got me next year? Yeah. Look, I'm under contract. Like, I love my money. No, but the thing is, and you can ask any of these guys here, I've always, since day one the trade happened, I'll say day 2 the trade happened. I can't say day 1, but day 2 when the trade happened, I got here, I've like I said, this place is not what people make it seem, and so it's a testament to the organization, to the coaching staff, the players, the media guy, everybody here, and I think I want to be able to have fun where I am. I want to be able to compete where I am. I want to be able to learn wherever I am. And this organization has that. They teach. And who knows? Like I said, I don't want to get y'all too much. Things have to get figured out, but I don't want to do this again. I'll say that. I don't want to do this again, but things have to get figured out. So you can read between the lines on that, DJ.
Anthony Davis, quote, "I'm under contract. I love my money," end quote. Now, people on Monday took those two sentences and ran with them. Look, Anthony Davis was trying to be funny. I'll let you decide whether he was or not. But in fairness to Davis, you can't just go by portions of answers. You got to listen to answers in their entireties. Anthony Davis, as we just heard, said a lot of good things about the Wizards. So to me, classifying him as some malcontent is wrong. He just wants to know the plan, and that's not unreasonable. He still has not played in a single game for the Wizards. He did not play in any of the team's 33 games off it, acquiring him via trade on February 5th, what was 2026 NBA trade deadline day. He was listed as being out due to a finger sprain on his left hand. Something else that came up during the season-ending press conferences on Monday was the contract status of Wizards head coach Brian Keefe. We don't know the exact details of his contract, but during Keefe's season-ending presser on Monday morning, had this exchange between David Aldridge and Keefe.
I do have to ask you this, and I apologize in advance, but have Will and Michael talked to you about your future and what's going to happen there? Because, I mean, you have to have, if that's going to happen, you have to get a new contract or you have to get an extension. I mean, that does have to be worked out.
Yeah, fair question for sure. I'm always focused on the task at hand. I have great conversations with Michael Will every day. I mean, that's how he's always operated. we're going to continue to focus on how to improve our team. And those conversations will always just happen organic, but I'm focused on how we're going to get better. Obviously, the season just ended, but I'm ready to attack that. So that's how I look at things, and I know that will work itself out.
Well, Brian Keefe served as the Wizards' interim head coach after the team on January 25th, 2024 announced Wes Unseld Jr. as having been removed as Wizards' head coach. The team on May 29th, 2024 officially named Keefe as the 26th head coach in franchise history. He has been a good soldier during the tank. I would not mind him being retained for at least another season, but you got to think big picture, right? And if the Wizards next season are pivoting to try to make the playoffs, you do wonder if Monumental Basketball president Michael Winger and Wizards general manager Will Dawkins now will try for a more experienced and established head coach. Also, some college basketball, big-time defection for Virginia Tech in the NCAA transfer portal, and to an ACC rival. We on Monday afternoon had reports that one of the Hokies' better players this past season, 6'9" true freshman Neo of Dallas of Greece, is transferring to North Carolina. A major portal get for UNC with its new head coach, former Denver Nuggets head coach Michael Malone. Michael Malone, who played college basketball for Loyola University, Maryland, 1989-1990 through 1992-1993. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. From RJD on X on the kicker for the DC Defenders of the United Football League, the UFL, Matt McCrane. He ended the Defenders' 45-7 blowout of the Houston Gamblers at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. this past Saturday afternoon to improve to 2-1 in the UFL's 2026 regular season. Went 3 for 3 on field goals and 5 for 5 on extra points. Among his field goals was a 60-yard, 4-point field goal with 7:54 left in the first quarter, writes RJD. Defenders, how in the world Washington struggles with finding a kicker, and the Defenders find one who nails 3 field goals with a 60-yard, 4-point field goal. Thank you for that, RJD. So Matt McCrane, over 3 UFL regular seasons, 2024 through 2026, is 37 for 48 on field goals, 77.08%. That's actually not that good of a percentage. He, over those 3 UFL regular seasons, is just 10 for 16 on field goal attempts between 40 and 49 yards, and is 9 for 13 on field goal attempts between 50 and 59 yards. He, in this 2026 regular season, is 2 for 2 on field goal attempts of at least 60 yards. So those are his only 2 UFL career field goal attempts of at least 60 yards. He has a strong leg, but he on field goals hasn't exactly been spectacular. Now, I would not be against the Washington Commanders giving McCrane a shot. I want competition for their current kicker, Jake Moody, but understand that Matt McCrane in the UFL has not exactly been automatic. He has kicked in the NFL 5 career regular season games. They came with 3 teams in the 2018 regular season. He has not kicked in an NFL regular season game since December 30th, 2018. Hey, choosing life insurance is tricky. Heck, life insurance as a topic can be uncomfortable, but Ethos makes getting life insurance fast and easy, 100% online. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, and get same-day coverage. There's no medical exam. You just answer a few simple health questions. You can get up to $3 million in coverage. Some policies are as low as $30 a month. You'll get your lowest rate from Ethos' network of trusted carriers. And know this, Ethos has a rating of 4.8 out of 5 stars on Trustpilot with over 4,000 reviews. Take 10 minutes today to get covered with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/Al Galdi. That's ethos.com/Al Galdi. Ethos.com/Al Galdi. Application times may vary. Rates may vary.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
Hey, please consider subscribing to the podcast if you're not already doing that. Subscribing to the podcast costs nothing. Make sure that you never miss an episode and helps out the podcast a lot. And if you're already subscribing, thank you. A really good NFL draft site is NFLmockdraftdatabase.com. Are you familiar with that site? NFLmockdraftdatabase.com. It aggregates data from a number of sources for a big board for the NFL draft. I read to you from NFLmockdraftdatabase.com as of it being updated early Monday morning. Quote, the 2026 Consensus Big Board uses rankings from 141 big boards evaluating talent across positions. It also incorporates 1,118 first-round mock drafts showing team priorities for top prospects. Additionally, 1,251 team-specific mock drafts provide context on franchise-specific selections. This approach delivers a reliable, well-rounded projection for the 2026 NFL Draft, end quote. Well, 4 of the top 9 players on NFLmockdraftdatabase.com's big board for the 2026 NFL Draft are Ohio State players. Number 2, linebacker/edge defender Arvell Reese. Number 6, linebacker Sonny Styles. Number 8, receiver Carnell Tate. Number 9, safety Caleb Downs. What might this mean? What should this mean for the Washington Commanders with their number 7 overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the first round for which is just 9 days away, Thursday night, April 23rd in Pittsburgh. It is a pleasure to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast, Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock. Mark is exceptional at talking Commanders from an X's and O's standpoint. He does tremendous Commanders all 22 breakdowns. You can read his work on his Substack, Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. A lot of great content on Mark's Substack, including a number of recent pieces on players who could be taken by Washington at 7. Mark has written for The Athletic and for The Washington Post. He also is a Commanders fan. You could follow Mark on X at Mark Bullock NFL. And Mark is joining us for the second of 2 conversations. He joined us on Monday's show, episode 1301, for a deep dive on Washington potentially taking Notre Dame running back Jeremiah Love at 7. We right now discuss Washington possibly drafting one of Ohio State's Big 4 at 7. Hey, Mark, how are you?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How about you?
Doing well. Good to talk to you again. You on your Substack in recent weeks have published extensive breakdowns of all 4 of the Big 4 out of Ohio State. March 31st, Carnell Tate. April 6th, Sonny Styles. April 8th, Caleb Downs. April 10th, Arvell Reese. Who do you like best out of Ohio State's Big 4?
If I'm ranking them just as prospects, I think Arvell Reese would be the hideaway guy. He's probably the most talented, has the most upside. In terms of guys that maybe fit what Washington are trying to do, I think all of them would fit what Washington's trying to do. I think all of them fit what anyone's trying to do, really. They're all very talented players, but I do think all 4 of them have a pretty strong fit with what Washington's trying to do. So I think if you're going off of kind of, I guess, positional value, Reese is the guy that could be the edge rusher if you transition him that way. And he's kind of got that hybrid, could he be a linebacker, could he be an edge rusher kind of thing that fits with what they're trying to do defensively with the versatility that Durante Jones looks for. So I think he's the one that would be far and away, well, I don't want to say far and away the top guy. The rest of them are all very, very talented too, but he's the one that's got the highest upside. But I also think he's probably the least likely one to be there at 7 for Washington.
I referenced Arvell Reese as a linebacker/edge defender because he's being talked about in both ways. Do you view him as an NFL player as more of a linebacker or an edge defender?
I think he's still quite raw as an edge defender. I think he's someone that you would need to develop and grow into that role. I don't think he's going to be a full-time edge day one coming out of college, right? I think he's someone that you would probably have to follow the playbook that kind of Dan Quinn and Michael Parsons put together with Micah, where he was an off-ball linebacker coming out of college, and they blitzed him a ton. They got him some looks on the edge, and over a sort of the first year, second year kind of period, they developed him more as a pass rusher, and he learns more of the pass rush moves and techniques and how to set up guys. And then you transition him into that kind of more gradually transition him into that edge rusher long term. I do think long term that upside as an edge rusher is something that you would want to tap into, and obviously edge rusher is the more premium position than off-ball linebacker. So I think that's where he will ultimately end up. But I don't think it's something that you can just draft him and say, right, you're our number one edge rusher day one. I think you have to transition him into that, play him off ball sometimes, play him on ball on the edge sometimes, and work up to that.
Who, in terms of the big four out of Ohio State, would you most want Washington to get at 7 if Arvell Reese is off the board?
I guess it's a question of, do you want short-term impact or longer-term impact? Because I think the longer-term impact, I think Sonny Styles would be the guy that I would want. I think he's probably the best player out of those three. He's probably also the one that they need the least in terms of, they just signed Leo Chenal. They have Frankie Louvu. They have Jordan McGee, who they're high on. So they've got 3 inside linebackers that, if they're playing a 3-4, it's only really 2 of those guys that are going to play. So they've got some depth in that spot. Now, Styles would come in and start over one of them right away, and that would give them good depth, and it would allow them to move Chenal and Louvu to the edge occasionally and mix and match some looks like that. But it's also probably the least necessary out of their needs. Whereas, Caleb Downs could come in right away and he could play strong safety, he could play free safety, he could play big nickel, he could play down linebacker. There's a bunch of stuff that you could do with him straight away. Carnell Tate could come in and be wide receiver 2 right away. And I think Tate is someone that I think fits what Jaden Daniels likes to do really well. So I'd probably rank them Styles as the best player out of the remaining 3, and that would be the long-term play, but not necessarily the one you need right now. And then I'd probably just give it to Tate over Downs as out of those next 2, just because I think Tate is such a polished player, and he does a lot of the things that really mesh with Jaden's game really well. If you, I'm sure we can get into that shortly, but I think that fits what they want to do on offense, and that it would give them their offense a bigger boost than Downs is more of a knit the defense together kind of player that is definitely very valuable. But I think the benefit of having that receiver 2 option for Jaden in the short term would probably be better for them.
Sonny Styles, from a Washington perspective, is especially interesting. Yes, the Commanders right now look pretty good at linebacker, but if they're doing the NFL draft as they should, best player available, their current state at linebacker should have no bearing on whether they take Styles. His athleticism is incredible. What most stood out to you in studying Styles?
Yeah, it's more the athleticism certainly does jump out, but there is a strong football IQ there. The coverage upside is obviously there from a guy that was a safety when he went into college and only recently transitioned to linebacker. You can see the coverage ability, the instincts, the range to run up the seam with if he's lined up in the A gap for a blitz and then he can bail out and run up the seam and play the Tampa 2 hole kind of thing. That's one of the plays where you see a guy's real range, and it's something that, Durante Jones and Brian Flores did a lot of with their linebackers in Minnesota. So that's the kind of range that he has, is able to do that kind of thing. But he's also, capable in zone coverage. He's aware of the bigger picture. He understands that, hey, if I'm sitting in zone coverage, I'm not just looking at one receiver and thinking this is the only guy. It's these couple of these guys are doing these different releases, and I can match my coverage appropriately to multiple different receivers. So he's got really good coverage upside. But I think the thing that stood out most, that was kind of unexpected, is when you see these safeties that transition to linebacker, they often struggle with the physical aspect of playing the run in the box, and they can often be like 220, 230 pound guys that are really athletic and they can avoid blockers, but they don't take guys on. And that's something that Styles does extremely well. And obviously he's 244 pounds, so that's what he measured in at the combine. So he's got a little bit more weight to him, but you see that he's got the physical mentality to go and attack blockers and take them on. He isn't afraid to try to run through a guy. And he knows that, if they're playing in a light box to have 2 safeties back deep, quite often he's going to have to be the one that, squeezes a gap shut by running into a guy and taking him on head on, and closing that gap by squeezing it with, playing 3 gaps to 2 defenders by squeezing the 2 blockers together. So he does that quite a lot. So yeah, he's such a well-rounded player, and I think that there's a tremendous amount of upside there. And I think he someone that you would profile as being your kind of Mike linebacker for the next 10 years, which is obviously a pretty good value.
You talked about how Washington drafting Sonny Styles would allow the Commanders to use linebackers Leo Chenal and Frankie Louvu in other ways. Now, we last season did see the team use Louvu as an edge defender a good bit, and the results were not good. He had a down season. Did last season expose Louvu as not being good as an edge defender, or should we not read too much into that given how much of a mess the defense was?
No, he's not necessarily someone you want lining up on the edge as part of a four-man rush, right? Because that was the thing with Louvu. In 2024, he was an off-ball linebacker, and they blitzed him as kind of the fifth rusher, and that would mean he'd get matched up on a running back in pass protection rather than an offensive lineman, and that's where his hair on fire play style shone through. He'd just run over running backs constantly and get straight through to the quarterback. In 2025, they, somewhat out of necessity, they had to put him on the edge, and they would still just rush four. And that means that he was taking on left tackles and right tackles, and that's a completely different ball game to taking on running backs. He has some pass rush techniques with his hands fighting and a few different moves here and there, but he's not an accomplished edge rusher. That's never been what his game is, right? So, if you move him down to the edge and you use him as part of a front four and you're just rushing four, you're going to see what happened last year. He's not going to be very effective. But if they're going to do what the Vikings did last year, where they're going to commit to rushing 5 and 6 and sometimes 7, then putting him on the edge or putting him inside doesn't really matter. He's just going to be one of the guys rushing. He's going to be one-on-one. And even if he doesn't get home, he's going to be occupying someone and someone else is going to get home, right? So in that style of defense, you can live with those kind of guys. And Chenal, I'd bracket into that. He's not really an edge rusher. He doesn't have those pass rush moves. But if you're going to commit to 5 and 6 man rushes, then it doesn't really matter if those guys are winning on the edge consistently against tackles or not, because someone else is going to win their one-on-one inside or against the running back, and you're effectively wasting the left tackle, which is typically the premier blocker on an offensive line, on a guy that's more of a off-ball linebacker blitzer type, right? So, that's the kind of way that this defense could get around that by moving those guys to the edge and rushing more guys, and then they're not having to rely on their front four to win. They've got more guys winning. So I think that would be the path that they'd go down if they were to get Styles.
We're talking with Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com, as we discuss the Big Four prospects out of Ohio State in the 2026 NFL Draft as they relate to Washington with its number 7 overall pick. Caleb Downs, the football IQ is outstanding. His overall work at Ohio State was great, but his measurables are underwhelming, and you in your Substack piece on Downs had a notable nugget, quote, Downs isn't an athletic specimen like some of the other top prospects in this draft. He's a good athlete, no doubt, but he's not an elite athlete, which is typically the only way a safety gets drafted in the top 10 picks of the first round. Only 8 safeties since the year 2000 have been drafted in the top 10, and they're all physical freaks. Funnily enough, 2 of them were drafted by Washington, Sean Taylor and LaRon Landry, end quote. To what extent are Downs' underwhelming measurables a concern?
Yeah, it's not a huge concern. He doesn't need that physical profile. It's what you typically see when you think about safety drafted in the top 10. Typically, you see those guys being physical freaks, and that has been how they kind of the NFL sees safety position. That they don't value those lesser athletes as highly. They don't value the safety position based on the top 5 contracts of the safety position. They don't value the safety position particularly highly at all. But yeah, the guys that get paid are typically the physical freaks, and the guy that's just been paid is Kyle Hamilton, who is almost a linebacker in kind of a corner's body sort of thing, or a corner in a linebacker's body kind of thing, and that's what makes him special. So Downs isn't that, but his play style isn't that either. His play style is he's the comparison I like to make, and I think some Commanders fans take it the wrong way, is Cam Curl, and I say that in that when Cam Curl was in Washington, he was such a versatile player. He wore so many different hats, and on a play-by-play basis, he could be the free safety in single high. He could play strong safety down in the box. He could play part of a two deep safety quarters look. He could, play nickel, big nickel. He could play dime linebacker. You could move him all over the place, and on any given down, he would play whatever role you needed him to do, and he would knit the defense together. And he didn't have many game breaking plays like huge interceptions or what have you, but he would consistently make sound decisions, consistently take receivers away and force the quarterback to go to a different option and hold on to the ball, which made things easier for the pass rushers. And he would consistently make open field tackles when, the ball would get checked down, and he'd make the tackle. And we've seen in Washington what happens if you don't make those open field tackles recently. So, that's the kind of thing that Caleb Downs does really well. He does it to a much higher level than what Cam Curl did in Washington, and that's not to say Cam Curl was a bad player. He was a very, very good one. But Caleb Downs does it to a higher level. But it's just that kind of style that knits everything together. Whatever role you kind of need him to play on the defense on any given down, he will play it, and he'll play it to a good level. So I think he's a floor raiser on the defense. He kind of makes everyone better. When Washington's floor was so low last year, that is an appealing prospect for Washington, I would think.
Washington last month signed safety Nick Cross as an unrestricted free agent, still has safeties Will Harris and Quan Martin. What would be the best way for Washington to use Caleb Downs if it drafted him?
Well, I think part of the way that he was used in college and part of the way you saw the Vikings play last year, they used a lot of three safety sets, where the third safety would come in and kind of be a big nickel, sometimes be a kind of in the box as a linebacker, as a kind of third linebacker. And that would be the kind of role I would think if you're going to get into those three safety looks. I think you can get both Nick Cross and Caleb Downs on the field pretty easily. And you could have them both. You could start Caleb Downs at free safety if you wanted to. When you're playing a lot of quarters and two deep stuff, the free and strong safety are both playing back anyway. So it's not so much, a free safety they don't need someone to be an Earl Thomas in the middle of the field with a ton of range, right? That's not Caleb Downs' game, but that's not what they'd be looking for from a free safety. It's more of a left and right kind of composition. So I think that they could play both of those two guys in a base defense, but I think more likely you'd see them in a kind of a three safety look where they'd be on the field probably with a Will Harris or a Quan Martin as well, and you can mix and match those guys around into various type of roles. As I say, Downs is versatile, could play a lot of different things. Quan Martin, in theory, could play the kind of nickel if you wanted a little bit more of a corner, previously played corner kind of profile in that spot. If you want a kind of a slightly bigger and more physical guy, you put Downs in there against, if you're getting a multiple tight end set, you might put him in there instead of Quan. So I think there's enough. He's versatile enough, and there's enough different looks and packages that they can put together where they would be able to play both Cross and Downs at the same time.
Carnell Tate, first of all, it is amazing how many great receivers have come out of Ohio State over the last decade. The receiver class in the 2026 NFL draft isn't that well regarded, so it is entirely possible that the Commanders at 7 will have their pick of all of the receivers in the draft. Just to be clear, you have Tate as the WR1 in the draft?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, what do you especially like about Carnell Tate?
I think he's just such a well-polished and well-rounded receiver. I went into it thinking, you see the stats of him, something like 17 yards per catch, and you think, okay, he's just a speedster deep threat. And then you see him run a 4.5 at the combine, and you're like, oh, maybe he's not just a speedster deep threat. Maybe he wins differently. And so I went into it thinking he's just going to be running go routes and fades and post routes all the game. And he ran plenty of those. But the way he wins isn't, it's not he's the Sean Jackson speed 4.3 down the field kind of thing, right? He's not just running by guys. As nice as that would be to have, he's a much more technical receiver. He uses a lot of subtle little moves, head fakes, jab steps, sets guys up with attacking their leverage and understanding, if I angle my route this way, that will widen the corner up, creating space to break this way later in the route. And he's so polished, as you talked about that Ohio State factory of receivers that they had there with Brian Hartline, the receivers coach. That he gets those guys so polished. They are so almost all of them are immediately effective in the NFL. If they're not immediately effective, within 2 or 3 years, they become very effective down the line. And they're so polished and so ready. And I think the way he wins is something that is repeatable. It's not like, oh, he was burning slow corners in college, but when he reaches the NFL, he'll be facing faster corners. He won't beat those guys. No, it's technical route running nuance that should translate to the next level. So while, yes, it would be nice for him to have that 4.3 speed to put on top of the technical route running, the technical route running is the stuff that will translate consistently. And when you think about Jaden Daniels and the way Jaden Daniels has the receivers that he's worked well with since he's been here in Washington has been veteran guys that he trusts to run the correct route at the right depth, break at the right time, and get to the correct spot. You think of Terry McLaurin, really good route runner. You think of Noah Brown, really good route runner, reliable. Zach Ertz, another really good route runner that knows how to set up things, attack leverage, create separation, and be at the right point at the right time. Tate does all of that. And he does it outside the numbers. He can run the comebacks, the hitches, the curls. He can obviously run the go routes and the fades and the posts and that kind of thing as well. But he's one of those receivers that is not. I don't think he's going to look like a rookie receiver coming out because he's so polished. The guy he reminded me of, not from a play style, but in terms of a polish, is Emeka Ibuka last year, another Ohio State guy, right? Everyone was like, is this guy going to be a wide receiver 1? Is he a wide receiver 2? What's his role going to be? Is he really worth a first round pick? I think the Bucks took him kind of mid to late first round last year, and then he came in straight away, was immediately productive, right? And they had injuries with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, who were the number 1 and 2 receivers there, and he stepped in and made it look like they didn't have any issues with missing Evans or Godwin. So he was just so polished and immediately available and instantly productive. And I think Tate could be a very similar prospect for Washington in that regard.
I am not one of these people trying to push Terry McLaurin out the door, but it is true that when you look at the contract extension that Washington signed him to last August, it is very possible that the 2026 season will be his last season with the team. He's been Washington's number 1 receiver since his rookie season 2019. Is Carnell Tate good enough to be a true number 1 receiver in the NFL? Like, do you view him as a legitimate potential successor to McLaurin?
I see him more as a wide receiver 2. I see him as a guy that could be a high-end wide receiver 2. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see him becoming that elite guy. I see him more as a wide receiver 2. But I think, as I say, the way he wins and his traits mash really well with what Jaden Daniels likes in his receivers, or at least what we've seen Jaden Daniels be successful with in the NFL, right? So I think he could be a guy that Jaden becomes to really rely on. And like we saw, like Noah Brown was a guy that had a really good connection with Jaden Daniels and a lot of trust. And Noah Brown was never a wide receiver 1 anywhere. He was someone that potentially could have been a decent wide receiver 2 if he could stay healthy. And that was obviously a big thing. But, he was such a reliable target and had good hands. And that was the other big trait that I thought Tate had, is he catches everything. He's great with contested catches down the field, going up and catching balls over guys, but he's also got such good body control on the sideline. He'll reach out and make grabs and keep his feet down in bounds. And another part of that Brian Hartline polish that he's got from college is he already knows that it's 2 feet down in the NFL rather than 1 foot in college. And you see quite often those sideline catches, he's making sure he's getting 2 feet down, that he's like, okay, I'm ready for the next level. And so that's the kind of detail and polish that he already has to his game that makes him quite appealing to me.
Noah Brown, yet another receiver out of Ohio State. You cannot get away from these people. Washington Commanders analyst Mark Bullock of Bullock's Film Room, which you can find at markbullock.substack.com. Mark, thank you, and we'll talk soon.
Of course, talk soon.
All right, whatever big event that you're planning, a wedding, a party, whatever, consider using a great sponsor of this podcast, cateringbyuptown.com. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Catering by Uptown is outstanding. It is a family business. It is run by the Pereiras, who are great Washington Commanders fans. Catering by Uptown is committed to meeting your every need with elegance and precision. Catering by Uptown takes care of every detail so that you can enjoy your event, and Catering by Uptown's specialty is weddings. Get excellent service at an affordable price. In fact, if you visit cateringbyuptown.com and click on venues, you could check out Catering by Uptown's premier wedding venues. Visit cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. That's cateringbyuptown.com and make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. Well, for the Washington Nationals in this season number 1 of a restarted rebuild, the reality has been simple. The offense has been really good. The pitching has been really bad. And the pitching on Monday evening was especially bad. A 16-5 loss at the Pittsburgh Pirates on Monday evening in Game 1 of a 4-game series. This was a game in which the Nats allowed the Pirates to score 4 runs in the bottom of the second and 10 runs in the bottom of the sixth. Yes, the Pirates scored 10 runs in the bottom of the sixth. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 7-9. Their starting pitcher in this 16-5 loss at the Pirates on Monday evening was Cade Cavalli. He allowed 4 runs in 1 1/3 innings. He lasted for a mere 1 1/3 innings. He gave up 3 hits, all of which were singles. He issued 3 walks and a hit by pitch. He recorded 2 strikeouts. He threw 48 pitches, just 24 strikes versus 24 balls. Cavalli tossed a scoreless bottom of the first despite a one-out throwing error by first baseman Luis Garcia Jr., and despite issuing a one-out hit by pitch of Brian Reynolds on a 1-2 pitch. And then Cavalli in the bottom of the second unraveled. He issued a one-out 4-pitch walk of Connor Griffin, gave up a one-out opposite field single by Jake Mangum to left field, issued a one-out 5-pitch walk of Henry Davis, issued a one-out bases-loaded walk of O'Neal Cruz to tie the game at 1 despite Cavalli having had Cruz down in the count at 1.02, gave up a one-out opposite field 2-run single by University of Maryland product Brandon Lau on a bloop to left center field for a 3-1 Pirates lead, and gave up a one-out opposite field RBI single by Brian Reynolds to left field for a 4-1 Pirates lead. And that was it. Nats manager Blake Butera pulled Cavalli from the game. Here was Butera during his post-game session with reporters on Monday night on Cavalli, and then you hear a follow-up exchange between Andrew Golden of the Baltimore Banner and Butera.
Yeah, he just first inning I thought he looked really good. I think when he went back out there for the second inning, you could just tell he was fighting his delivery a little bit, had trouble getting ahead of hitters, just was out of the zone. An uncharacteristic amount. Yeah, just looked like he was fighting himself a little bit. The stuff was normal. There wasn't anything there that dropped off. It was just more so he just couldn't find the zone.
Was there anything just from your playing eye in the camp that looked off, or just something maybe like with some more video, some more detail, maybe you guys can figure it out?
Yeah, haven't had a chance to really dive into it yet. Just as a whole, you could tell he was frustrated. He couldn't get in the zone. Just wasn't able to find it tonight. Like I said, the first inning was good. It just was really when we went back out there for the second is he was just fighting himself. Couldn't get in there.
No, he could not. So you look at Cade Cavalli's 4 starts in this regular season. The 10-4 win at the Chicago Cubs on opening day, March 26th. 3 runs, 2 earned in 3 2/3 innings. The 6-5 10-inning loss at the Philadelphia Phillies on April 1st. 1 run in 6 innings. The 7-6 10-inning loss to the St. Louis Cardinals at Nationals Park on April 7th. 2 runs, 1 earned in 4 2/3 innings. Now this 16-5 loss at the Pittsburgh Pirates on Monday evening, 4 runs in 1 1/3 innings. Cade Cavalli over these 4 starts, ERA of 4.60, WHIP of 1.72, 19.21 pitches per inning. Extreme inefficiency. The Nats for this regular season have the following starting pitching stats: ERA of 5.66, WHIP of 1.57. And then there was the Nats relief pitching in this 16-5 loss at the Pirates on Monday evening. 4 Nats relievers and outfielder Joey Wiemer combined to allow 12 runs in 6 2/3 innings. As yes, a Nats position player pitched in this game. Paxton Schultz, he allowed 1 run in 2 2/3 innings with 4 strikeouts versus no walks. He, in the bottom of the third, allowed a run on a leadoff homer by Spencer Horwitz to right field for a 5-1 Pirates lead. Jackson Rutledge officially allowed 7 runs in 1 1/3 innings. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Rutledge from AAA Rochester. He had what ended up being the 10-run sixth for the Pirates, gave up a 3-run triple by Brian Reynolds to right field on an 0-2 pitch for an 8-1 Pirates lead. And then Rutledge on the very next pitch gave up a first pitch RBI double by Ryan O'Hearn off the center field wall for a 9-1 Pirates lead. And Rutledge gave up a one-out opposite field RBI single by Connor Griffin into right field for a 10-1 Pirates lead. And the Nats after the game announced having optioned Rutledge back to AAA Rochester. Brad Lord, he officially allowed 3 runs in 2/3 of an inning. He came into the game in the bottom of the 6th with runners on first and second, 1 out, and the Nats down 10-1. He, to the first batter he faced, issued a 1-out, 5-pitch walk of Jake Mangum to load the bases. Lord, 2 batters later, gave up a 2-out first pitch, bases loaded 2-run single by O'Neill Cruz off the right field wall for a 12-1 Pirates lead. Lord, to the next batter he faced, gave up a 2-out full count, 3-run homer by Brandon Lau to right field for a 15-1 Pirates lead. The homer went a projected 410 feet per Statcast. Orlando Revolta mercifully tossed a perfect bottom of the 7th. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Revolta from AAA Rochester. And outfielder Joey Weimer, he pitched. He, in the bottom of the 8th, allowed a run as he gave up 2 singles and issued a hit by pitch and a walk. He threw 21 pitches, just 10 strikes versus 11 balls. The Nats for this regular season have the following relief pitching stats: ERA of 6.72, whip of 1.64. The pitching for this team has been really bad. Now, I mentioned the roster moves regarding Jackson Rutledge and Orlando Revolta. They were brought up from AAA Rochester because the Nats on Monday afternoon announced having placed 2 relievers on the 15-day injured list. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having put relief pitcher Cole Henry on the 15-day injured list due to a right rotator cuff strain. And the Nats on Monday afternoon announced having put relief pitcher Ken Waldachuk on the 15-day injured list due to left forearm tightness, which often is a precursor to needing UCL surgery. Waldachuk, in the Nats' 8-6 win at the Milwaukee Brewers on Sunday afternoon, left the game in the bottom of the 7th off wincing in pain off throwing a pitch. Very concerning scene. And Blake Butera, during his pregame session with reporters on Monday afternoon, said that a recommendation from a doctor was for Waldachuk to get Tommy John surgery, but Butera also said that Waldachuk was going to get a second opinion. That does usually happen when you don't like the first opinion. Waldachuk underwent Tommy John surgery on his left elbow in May 2024. As for the Nats offense in this 16-5 loss at the Pirates on Monday evening, the Nats offense was so-so. 5 runs, 8 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 5 singles, 2 walks, 1 for 3 with runners in scoring position. 4 of the runs came in the top of the 7th in what was garbage time. The Nats faced one of the best pitchers in MLB, Pirates ace Paul Skeens. He allowed 1 run in 6 innings with 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk, but the Nats did homer off Skeens. C.J. Abrams, he is the Nats starting shortstop and number 3 batter, went 1 for 2 with a solo homer. Abrams in the Nats 1-run first had a 2-out solo homer to right field off Skeens for a 1-0 Nats lead despite having been down in the count at 1.12. C.J. Abrams continues to do well. He, for this regular season now, has an OPS of 1,024. Jacob Young homered. He is the Nats starting center fielder and number 5 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 2-run homer. Young in the Nats 4-run 7th had a 1-out 2-run homer to left field to cut the Nats deficit to 15-3 despite having been down in the count at 1.12. Jacob Young for this regular season now has an OPS of 830. He is showing improvement offensively. Very good to see that. Nasim Nunez, he is the Nats starting second baseman and number 8 batter, went 1 for 4 with a 2-run single. Nunez in the Nats 4-run 7th had a 1-out 2-run single through the right side of the infield to cut the Nats deficit to 15-5. And James Wood, he is the Nats starting right fielder and number 1 batter, went 1 for 3 with a single and a walk. Wood on Monday afternoon was named National League Player of the Week for games played from Monday, April 6th through Sunday, April 12th. Game 2 for the Nats at the Pirates, Tuesday evening at 6:40. Miles Michaelis will be the Nats starting pitcher. Here's how bad the Baltimore Orioles injury situation has gotten in this, a third consecutive season in which the O's are getting ravaged by injury. O's manager, Craig Albernaz, he on Monday night in the Orioles dugout with one out in the bottom of the fifth got struck on the right side of the face by a foul ball by the Orioles starting second baseman and number 8 batter Jeremiah Jackson. Albernaz left the dugout, did return to the dugout, and he ended up seeing a remarkable win for his O's, and the win was due in large part to Jeremiah Jackson, a 9-7 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Monday evening in Game 1 of a 3-game series. This was a game in which the O's overcame a 7-1 sixth-inning deficit, a tremendous comeback win for the O's, who in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 9-7, 6-1 since a 3-6 start. Craig Albernaz was to undergo a scan, but otherwise seems to be doing well. Good to see and hear that. But the O's on Monday evening prior to the game did announce a bunch of roster moves, among them having placed first baseman Ryan Mountcastle on the 60-day injured list due to a left foot fracture. Also, the O's on Monday evening announced having transferred relief pitcher Yaramil Geraldo to the 60-day injured list. They on Easter Sunday morning, April 5th, announced having put him on the 15-day injured list, retroactive to April 2nd, this due to right shoulder inflammation. So each of the following Orioles players now is on an injured list. Catcher Adley Rutschman, third baseman / second baseman Jordan Westberg, second baseman Jackson Holliday, first baseman Ryan Mountcastle, outfielders Tyler O'Neill and Heston Kjerstad, starting pitcher Zach Eflin, and relievers Andrew Kittredge, Keegan Aiken, Dietrich Enns, Yaramil Geraldo, Felix Batista, and Colin Selby. So many key guys on injured lists. You could always email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Terry, who's a big Orioles fan, writes Terry, Al, Eflin, Adley, O'Neill, Mountie, this is nuts. Here we go again. Thank you for the email, Terry. Yes, this is nuts. And yes, here we go again. But the O's somehow pulled off this 9-7 win over the Diamondbacks at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Monday evening. The O's were great offensively, 9 runs, 8 hits, which were 3 home runs, a triple, a double, and 3 singles, 4 walks, 3 for 8 with runners in scoring position. The aforementioned Jeremiah Jackson, he is the Orioles starting second baseman and number 8 batter, went 3 for 4 with a grand slam, a solo homer, and a single. Jackson in the Orioles' 5-run sixth had a 1-out grand slam to left field to cut the Orioles' deficit to 7-6. The homer went a projected 406 feet per Statcast, and Jackson in the Orioles' 1-run eighth had a leadoff homer to center field for a 9-7 Orioles lead. The homer went a projected 427 feet per Statcast. Jeremiah Jackson, the O's in November 2024 signed him to a minor league contract. This is his age 26 season, and he on Monday evening was quite good. Also homering for the O's was Pete Alonso. He is the Orioles starting first baseman and number 3 batter, went 2 for 3 with a 2-run homer, a double, and a walk. Alonso in the Orioles' 2-run seventh had a 2-run homer to left center field to give the O's an 8-7 lead. Is he now getting going? He got off to a really bad start to this regular season, but Alonso has been good over the Orioles' last 2 games. Gunnar Henderson, he continues to be good. He is the Orioles starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 1 for 5, but the one was an RBI triple. He did commit a throwing error in the Diamondbacks' 2-run fourth, but Henderson in the Orioles' 1-run third had a 1-out RBI triple to the right center field gap to cut the Orioles' deficit to 2-1. The triple had an exit velocity of 103.2 miles per hour per Statcast. Henderson for this regular season has an OPS of 911, and also doing well is Leody Taveras. He is the Orioles starting center fielder and number 6 batter, went 1 for 3 with an RBI single and a walk. Taveras for this regular season has an OPS of 947. Now, he only has 31 plate appearances, but he has been productive when he has played. The Orioles starting pitcher in this 9-7 win over the Diamondbacks at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Monday evening was Dean Kramer. The O's on Monday afternoon announced having recalled Kramer from AAA Norfolk and having optioned starting pitcher Cade Povich to Norfolk. And Kramer, as the Orioles starting pitcher on Monday evening, allowed 4 runs, 2 earned in 5 innings. He gave up 6 hits, which were 3 home runs, a double, and 2 singles, but he had 9 strikeouts versus no walks, and he threw a lot of strikes, 80 pitches, 55 strikes, just 25 balls. So the home runs were the problem. Kramer in the top of the first allowed a run as he gave up a leadoff first pitch homer by Carnell Tate to right field for a 1-0 Diamondbacks lead. The homer went a projected 443 feet per Statcast. Kramer in the top of the third allowed a run as he gave up a one-out solo homer by Carnell Tate to right field for a 2-0 Diamondbacks lead. That homer went a projected 405 feet per Statcast. And Kramer in the top of the fourth allowed 2 runs as he gave up a 2-out 2-run homer by Nolan Arenado to left field on a 1-2 pitch for a 4-1 Diamondbacks lead. Both of the runs were unearned thanks to that one-out throwing error by shortstop Gunnar Henderson. Going to be interesting to see what kind of season that Dean Kramer has. This is his age 30 season. The O's got Kramer from the Los Angeles Dodgers in the trade package for third baseman / shortstop Manny Machado all the way back in July 2018. Kramer in the 2025 regular season appeared in 31 games, including 29 starts, ERA of 4.19, ERA plus of 98, whip of 1.212, led the O's in innings pitched at 171 2/3. So the O's this past March 21st did announce having optioned Kramer to minor league camp. And the Orioles relief pitching in this 9-7 win over the Diamondbacks at Oriole Park at Camden Yards on Monday evening. 3 Orioles relievers combined to allow 3 runs in 4 innings. Albert Suarez allowed 3 runs in 2 innings. He, in the top of the 6th, allowed 3 runs, gave up a one-out 3-run homer by Nolan Arenado to left center field for a 7-1 Diamondbacks lead. But Rico Garcia tossed a perfect top of the 8th, and Ryan Helsley tossed a perfect top of the 9th with 2 swinging strikeouts for the save. What a win for the O's. Game 2 for the O's against the Diamondbacks at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. Tuesday evening at 6:35. Trevor Rogers will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now, but there's more to come. Wednesday's show, episode 1303, will include a lot for you on the Washington Commanders. Also on Wednesday's show, I'll talk Washington Capitals, Washington Nationals, and Baltimore Orioles. The Caps have their final game in the NHL's 2025-2026 regular season. Caps at the Columbus Blue Jackets Tuesday night at 7. The Nats are at the Pittsburgh Pirates Tuesday evening at 6:40 for Game 2 of a 4-game series. The O's are home to the Arizona Diamondbacks Tuesday evening at 6:35 for Game 2 of a 3-game series. Have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I'll talk to you on Wednesday.
Do you think, at the least, while these questions get answered, do you at least say, okay, you got me next year?
Yeah. Look, I'm under contract. Like, I love my money.
I sold my car in Carvana last night.
Well, that's cool.
No, you don't understand. It went perfectly. Real offer, down to the penny. They're picking it up tomorrow. Nothing went wrong.
So, what's the problem?
That is the problem. Nothing in my life goes as smoothly. I'm waiting for the catch.
Maybe there's no catch.
That's exactly what a catch would want me to think.
Wow, you need to relax.
I need to knock on wood. Do we have wood? Is this table wood?
I think it's laminate.
Okay, yeah, that's good. That's close enough.
Car selling without a catch. Sell your car today on
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.